Hey everyone, welcome to After the Buzzer. This is the video series where we talk about a topic related to the main episode of Game Tape Rewind, but we didn't have time to talk about it, so we are giving you a little bonus content. On this episode of Game Tape Rewind, we talked about what we consider to be the old guard, which would be the quarterbacks in the NFL who have sort of been there forever and sort of made the NFL what it is today, who are probably in their final years and are somehow still delivering at a pretty high level. So for the purposes of this conversation, we talked about Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Philip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger, and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, it's a weird time for us. Like we said, with the NBA, we mentioned in the podcast when a few of the greats retired and we were left with the new guys. It kind of hit us like, oh my gosh, like it's really over. So I think
Mm-hmm.
we're right there for that for now. And what we didn't go into the episode as much about was our personal, opinion or favorites on them. And it's kind of an interesting question when you ask, who's the best. It's not always necessarily just on accolades. It's also your opinion on their talent and their scenarios. So I will ask you this, incredibly difficult question, which everyone always poses in a sport is out of them, how about you just rank them, who
Mm-hmm.
go from your least best to your best.
Okay. So a 5-1 countdown
Yeah. Well,
probably
5-1.
probably works. I'm gonna do this based on who I would rather have, whose career I would rather have on my team, if that makes sense. So starting at number 5, I would say probably Philip Rivers. I'm sorry, I know you're a Philip Rivers guy. Um, he's had the stats throughout his career. He never seemed to be the source of the problem for the Chargers, but I mean, it seemed like there's something wrong always. Like, it seemed like he was cursed. Um, and knowing that he was the Giants draft pick, which I did mention on the podcast, I think would have tarnished the legacy of Eli and my sort of happiness over the last 2 decades for whenever I did have happiness in the NFL. So he'd be my number 5 just because of what I would have been replacing what I had with, if that's fair. Number 4 would probably be Ben. I don't have anything against him as a player. I think as a person, he's a questionable character, and it's. I mean, I think I'm nitpicking here, but he just seems like he wouldn't measure up to the other 3 on this list. And I'm looking over here because that's where I have the list. Um, so he'd be my number 4. I think he was probably the most team dependent, um, but he always seemed to deliver when this team needed it. Number 3 is Brees. It comes down to how clutch you are when you're talking about these final few guys. And in the playoffs, he had a few moments where it seemed like the moment got the better of him. And I think specifically you can look back to the game where they had the no call pass interference penalty. They ended up kicking a field goal to take the lead. The Rams tied it, but in overtime, he threw a pretty bad interception um, on the first drive of overtime. So the Rams kicked a field goal to win the game almost immediately after that, and that's probably unfair. But when you're comparing him to Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, I think that just has to be part of the criteria. Um, Number 2, I'm not sure about this, but I'll probably say Brady. And it's like splitting hairs to the atomic level. But I think if you put him on, any other team with a competent leadership, more well-rounded organization, defense, whatever, he's got at least multiple Super Bowls. Um, I think Brady is fine, if as a number 1. But for me, I think Aaron Rodgers, just the way he plays the game, it always seemed like it would be a little bit more entertaining. Whereas Brady is more of the clinical, surgical, sort of just like do anything he wanted on the field, and sort of like dissect you like a surgeon. So from an entertainment standpoint, I think Rodgers just has a little bit more flair. He's every bit as talented, if not more. And I think with a better system and supporting cast, he would have won at least multiple Super Bowls. So he's my number one. Brady is number two. Um, hopefully none of my Patriots friends are in my mentions after this, but you never know. How about you?
You based off what your criteria, I'm gonna answer a similar way. Who would I just want on my team? Period. And I'm gonna take in everything into account what I've seen on their career, and if I just had them for let's say at their best, who would I want? I'm gonna go the exact same order as you. I think Rivers and Roethlisberger is a pretty close splitting. I'm fine. Probably, I think Roethlisberger has benefited from some interesting circumstances, but he has also rose to the occasion on almost all of them. So that is a difference enough in itself. Brees is the happy middle ground, just a stat monster, reliable, dependable over time. But for me, and you're getting into like that GOAT thing, and how do you really tell, and what is your metric system? For me, it's not just the accomplishments, but it is the talent. And I think that Aaron Rodgers is more talented than Tom Brady. I think he has more tools in his individual talent to use, and he just hasn't necessarily been in as good circumstances. I think Brady's helping himself in Tampa Bay with that kind of Belichick, the system. I mean, look at the Patriots. They still have, one of the better quarterbacks of our time in Cam Newton, granted having a rough year, but still not making the playoffs. So that says a lot about Brady. But if it was my team and I wanted to kind of sit back and relax, I think I'm cool with having Aaron Rodgers as my quarterback. And maybe it's a little personal preference, but they're both killer instincts. Both have been clutch. But I think that Aaron Rodgers is probably the most talented quarterback that I have seen, and we'll see how Mahomes and company do. Yeah, but I need to see some longevity there. But I'm going to go the same, and that's definitely probably not how a lot of people see it. But GOAT is certainly more than just talent. It is about the rings and the championships and all those kind of things.
Of course.
And that's fair. But if it's my team and I'm starting the old Eric's football team from Delaware, I want a quarterback from the past decade or two.
I think if you asked me before this season, it probably would have been clearer 1-2, Rodgers, Brady. But what Tom Brady's doing in Tampa this year has made it much closer. I got to give him a ton of credit for that. And who knows, if we ask this question again a year from now, maybe the answer would be different altogether. So this was fun. I know we agree on a lot of things. I didn't expect us to have exactly the same 5, but let us know what your rankings are in the comments. Follow us on Twitter and here on Instagram at Game Tape Rewind. Use hashtag Game Tape Rewind to tag us in any of your own thoughts or comments. Listen to the main episode of Game Tape Rewind, which will be out by the time you see this. And we hope you enjoy the NFL playoffs and savor the last of the old guard here this season and in the seasons to come. And we will talk to you next time.